I am so grateful that you get to join me on this journey to work on this Type It quilt. It is not an ideal situation, but hopefully I can give you some ideas for if you make a mistake like this on a quilt top that you're working on, just something that could help fix it. This is the Type It quilt. I made it for my little sister. It's in her college colors, red, black, white, and I added some gray here. Um, and it is a signature quilt. So we took it down to South Georgia and everybody signed it. But some of the people signed too high or in like the margin that's going to be covered up by the binding. So I decided that I would try to transfer that to different parts of the quilt. And I tried it once and this is the result. And so that's why we have some repairs to do. Let's zoom in so you can see what happened. And then we'll go over how I plan to remedy this. So I'm just going to zoom in on the section. What I was going to try to do was get some transfer paper, and I won't show the brand because I know it's my own error that has it like this. And I'm trying to adjust the camera, so sorry for bouncing. But I tried to transfer it, and then the whole design didn't transfer. And when I try to take the transfer away, this is the result. So I haven't measured it. I'm thinking it's about 6 inches. And so I need to consider that when considering how I'm going to repair this. And like I said, hopefully it'll just give you some ideas in case you make a mistake similar to this. I'm going to take this from the design wall, and then we're going to talk about what I want to do to fix it. I have done a lot of thinking about what to do about repairing this. It is pretty much an eyesore on the quilt, so I went through some different ways to repair it. I actually started with some inspiration from these blocks, and I pulled my my block a day book out to see, because I thought maybe I can put some of these stars in some different places, like in some open spots on the quilt, to make it to just kind of fill it out, cover that space, and then fill in some of those empty light spaces on the quilt. And I was just looking through this book. This is the Block a Day book. It's where all of the inspiration for these stars came from that are behind me. And I thought that was a pretty good idea, but I decided to go a different way, because the next thing that I thought about was this quilt. Let me see, I'll show you just a little bit of it. This is my alphabet quilt, and I made an entire quilt with the alphabet on it. Let me show you the picture of it right here. And I did create like a guidebook, a sampler pattern. So this is the entire quilt. And I thought, what if I just make the letter J, since her name starts with J, and I put it on that spot. And so, oh, the quilt's over there. But if I put it over that spot, it would be a nice little patch and it would cover everything. So that's what I'm going to do. I went and I pulled this is the pattern. I'll link this in my Etsy shop in the description if you're interested. It's really simple way to make some letters. And I tell you how to adjust the size for the letter that you need. And then these are like, some of them are a little shorter and a little taller. So each letter is in 2 sizes, sort of. There's a row of 5 blocks and a row of 6 blocks to, oh, I did that wrong. A block with 5 rows and a block with 6 rows for each letter. And I have them by category, letters with only straight lines, letters with curves, letters with angles, so that you can check that out. Now, in order to create this, I went to my 2.5-inch squares, and I'm going to show you what I came up with. Here is what I've come up with so far with the letter J. I changed the pattern just a little bit to give it the little cross, the horizontal line at the top, and then it's going to come down into the J. Now, it's not fully laid out because these blocks, these 3 right here, are going to be half square triangles, but I have those, I have the fabric here, but I don't have it in place because it's not formed into the half square triangle. And I think this would look really nice on the quilt, but I want to try one more thing. Instead of having the dark background, I want to look at it with a light background. So these are my 2.5-inch squares. These are just scraps that I have collected over time. And I'm going to take, instead of these black and gray blocks, I'm going to try this with some lighter blocks and just see which one I like the best. I'll do that. I'm going to do it off camera, and then I'll come back and show you what we come up with. Here is the look with the lighter background squares. And I'm kind of drawn to this look more on this light background. I think it's going to be kind of unexpected, and it'll be like a little patchwork in the middle of no patchwork. So I think this is what we're going with. The only thing is I think I'm going to swap out this one for a different one. I'm just going through my squares and just looking for something that's a little bit more neutral. Maybe this one or this one. So let's see which one. And I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter, and then if I'm taking out this one, probably should take out that one. But I know it doesn't matter. And then let's swap out. This one seems dark, but it'll be a half square triangle, so it won't be that big a deal. What about this one? I think, let me see what I can swap it for. I know that it doesn't matter, but if I'm going to keep it neutral, I should just keep it more neutral. Let's see if I have anything. I'm just looking for something that is different from all the other ones. Let's see. And I think it's cool that I could find completely unique blocks in these. In the other one, I could not find completely unique squares. So I think that's pretty cool too. Okay, I'm just going to leave that one and it'll be okay. All right, so this is going to be my patch. We're going to go ahead and sew it. I'm going to start with the half square triangles, and then we'll stitch the rest of this. I put my block on a smaller mat and I moved it over beside the sewing machine. What I'm going to do now is start sewing this together. I'm going to start with these half square triangles. Typically with a half square triangle, I normally draw the line and then I sew a 1/4 inch both sides of this line. But since these squares are 2.5 inches and I want to get a 2.5 inch square, for this part, I'm going to sew right on the line, or maybe a hair to one side of the line, so that I'm sure that my finished half square triangle will be 2.5 inches. So I'm going to do this for all 3 of the half square triangles, and then I'll place them here in the block so that you can see it, and then we'll sew the whole thing together. I have my 3 half square triangles here. I did press them open. I normally don't do that, but I just decided to do it on this one. I normally press to one side. These are the little bits that came off. Again, I stitched these exactly on the line, not on both sides of that line, because I wanted these to finish at 2.5 inches. Now, my next step is going to be just to sew this entire thing together. I'm going to sew across into rows, and then I'm going to sew the rows together. So I'll do that off camera and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I have the completed J for this quilt, and to me, it turned out super cute. I'm very excited about it. Let's look at the back. You can see that the seams are nested, and then I pressed them all down, and I used an ivory colored thread to hopefully blend in a little bit, and I think it's going to look great on the quilt. Now, the process that I'm going to do to put it on the quilt top is something that's going to make it look like needle turn applique. Hopefully it will look sort of hand applique, even though I am not doing anything by hand on this. So what I've done is I just grabbed a piece of interfacing. This is the Pellon SK135 that I use on my bears and stuff. And I'm going to put it, I'm going to attach it to this. Then I'll be able to turn this panel inside out and press it onto the quilt top. So what I'm doing is this interfacing has a smooth side and a bumpy side. This is the smooth side. I don't know if you can tell the difference on camera, but this is the bumpy side. The bumpy side is where the adhesive is. So I'm going to put it bumpy side down on the front of my panel. Don't freak out. Hopefully it won't. I mean, it's not going to affect anything because I'm not ironing anything yet. And then I'm going to pin this, and then I'm going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch, maybe as much as 1/4 inch inside. I think I will do 1/4 inch because of my seam allowances down here on these half square triangles. I'll do 1/4 inch all the way around, and then we'll do the next step. I am going to pin this. All I did for this interfacing was I placed it on the, or I put the interfacing down and I put the panel on it and cut around it. So it's not perfect, but it's not worth freaking out about. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I will speed this process up, but I'll show you the whole thing on camera. I'm going to pin this down and then go around with my 1/4 inch seam, and then we will, I'll show you that next step. So I'm speeding up the video starting now. I have my entire piece here stitched all the way around. So now I'm actually going to clip these corners just a little bit before I turn this. So I'm not quite cutting to the stitching, but I'm just kind of snipping these corners just a little bit. Hopefully it'll help them be more pointy. Doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to do this right quick, making sure I don't get to the seam here. And it's kind of challenging because all of this is the same color, but it'll be okay. All right. And I have thought about going around and trimming this a little closer, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I think it's going to be okay. Now, before I get ready to turn this, I'm going to lift this up just a little bit here. And I'm going to snip it. So just to make sure that I don't snip the panel underneath it. So we're just going to get a nice snip here. And then I'm going to turn this inside out. Okay. So I'm just turning it here. All right. And I'm going to press these, press my points out as good as they can be pressed out. And if you have a little turning tool, that might help. And I may need to grab a turning tool, you know, just to kind of make sure that these sections are nice and tight here. Okay. All right. And then just continue to turn. Just like this. And then here. So I'm going to take just a few minutes and get this as flat as I can get it, and then push out my corners just a little bit to see if they can be pushed out a little more. But here's the J. So let me get it ready for pressing, and then we'll press it onto the quilt top. It's time to put our patch on this section of quilt that is really messed up. I am really glad that I went with the lighter patch. I think it's going to add a nice little bit of variety and almost kind of like a graffiti look on the quilt. So I can turn this one way or the other way. So I could either have it, this is kind of straight. It's lined up with the lines on the quilt. If I want to, I can kind of turn it one way. I actually like it this way just a little bit. So this is how we're going to secure it. This is how I want to press it. I have the interfacing on the back. I did have an option. I think if I wanted to, I could cut the intersection of this out, but I'm going to leave it. I'm concerned that we're going to be able to see it, like see these dark sections, like right here and right here through the piece. Doesn't matter, but just for my own liking, and it'll give it a little bit more. I don't even think we need stability, but just to have a little something behind it so it can hide it a little bit. So my next step is, since this is fusible, is just to fuse it with the iron. Normally I use a pressing cloth to do this, but for this application I'm not, because basically the panel represents the pressing cloth. And I'm not even sure how secure this has to be, because I'm going to stitch it down on the sewing machine. So I'm just going to take my iron here. I have it on the hottest setting, and I'm just going to kind of press it for a few seconds just to see what it does. And then I'm just going to go to the next part. And I'm just doing like 5 seconds or something just to see if it'll stay. Okay, and then the next part. Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I'm excited. Okay, I will finish fusing this, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like. The panel is fused in place on the quilt. There's not even any sections where it's poking up, which is really cool. So next, I'm going to just take my sewing machine and do a stitch all the way around. I played around with a couple of decorative stitches. I was really interested in doing like a scallop or a serpentine stitch, but the tension, I couldn't get the tension right. So I'm just going to go with a straight stitch. I'm going to get as close to the edge as I can, like maybe 1/8 of an inch, all the way around. And then this quilt top will be ready to go. I will do that on camera, speeding up the video so that you can see it. I just want to make sure that it is moved, like the other parts of the quilt are moved out of the way so that I can see what I'm doing. I have an open-toed foot on here instead of my 1/4 inch foot. And I'm going to start in the center of one side so I don't have to, hopefully I won't have to backstitch. So let's see. And I made my, I increased my stitch length. I'm not sure exactly what it is because my machine doesn't really have a number, but I made it a little bit longer. I made the stitch length a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and get this stitch down so that we can see our final quilt top. Here is the updated quilt top with what I'm calling a graffiti block on the quilt. I'm really excited about this. I think it looks great. Couple of takeaways. One, it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake on your quilt top. So I'm happy that I got a chance to try this, even though the circumstances were not ideal. Another takeaway is, if you're going to try a new technique on the block, for example, me trying to do the transfer, practice it on another piece of fabric first. If I had done that, I wouldn't be in this position, but this is not a bad position to be in. So if you make a mistake similar to this, it's not the end of the world. Don't give up. Come up with a new way to keep the quilt and add a little pizzazz to it, I guess is the right word. My only thing now is that this little block is lonely, I think, by itself on the quilt, and so it kind of sticks out. I am thinking of adding her middle initial, which is an A, down near the bottom of the quilt where there's not a lot of writing down there. So we have this big blank space that really could have an A there. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. I would love to dig into my scraps again, make a quick block, and get it put on. The process is not very hard. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions about what you've seen in this video, leave them in the comments below. Thumbs up this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!